Hello dear students, welcome back again to Chinmoy's YouTube channel. So this is the third part of nervous system of 8th standard. So till now whatever I have done, please go through it. If you have not gone through it, please I am giving the link in the description box as well as in the I link above. Go through it because I have already done the types of nerves. I have already done the synapse, the central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord, the types of nerves and all, and the structure and function of neuron. So these are important parts have been already covered. So this is the last and final part of nervous system. So let us get started with today's part. So what we are going to study today, we are going to study today about reflex action. We are going to study about the few important terms which are very important, like stimulus, response, external stimuli, internal stimuli, receptors, effector organs, and in brief we will learn about the peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system, which is not there in your curriculum. For higher classes it's there, but here we should know in brief what are they, and we should learn in brief about the sense organs, though we all know that what are sense organs. So if you need to learn more regarding this lesson as well as many other upcoming lessons which I am going to teach you in a systematic manner, you need to subscribe to my channel. You need to stay tuned and stay updated with all the lessons which I am teaching. So please do subscribe. Don't forget to share your videos with your friends and stay updated with all the lessons I am teaching. So let us start with today's episode of reflex action. Now first we are here with reflex action. So what is reflex action? As the name suggests, reflex means anything that is happening automatically. So there are certain actions in our body which are not controlled by the brain. They are mainly controlled by the spinal cord, and some actions which they never involve the brain only. So a few examples like that: when you step on a sharp object and you instantly withdraw your foot, so this reaction is an automatic reaction. So it does not involve in the thinking of your brain. So as soon as you place your hand in a hot object, as you place your foot in a sharp object, you immediately withdraw it. So there is no option of thinking. So it's an immediate action or an autonomic and spontaneous reaction which is controlled by the spinal cord itself. So this automatic, spontaneous, mechanical response to a stimulus. So here the stimulus is the sharp object or the hot object, whatever you are placing your hand on, you are placing your feet on. So these are the stimulus which are controlled by the spinal cord. Is it clear? So these are automatic, spontaneous and mechanical response to the stimulus controlled by the spinal cord without the involvement of the brain. So here the brain is not at all involved, that is, no thinking part is there. So it's a spontaneous automatic spontaneous response, mechanical response. So this response is called the reflex action. And the nerve pathway of this reflex action is called the reflex arc. In the next slide, I'll discuss with you the full reflex arc with label diagram. So the nerve pathway is the reflex arc, and this full action is called the reflex action. Now the reflex arc involves the 3 neurons. So in the previous episode, if you have already gone through the previous part, you know that there are 3 types of nerves: sensory, motor and mixed nerves. Like that only, there are neurons also, different types: sensory neurons, association neurons and motor neurons. So we will discuss with the functions of these 3 neurons also. So the reflex arc involves 3 neurons like sensory neurons, association neurons and motor neurons. So let us now see that what is reflex action, reflex arc, and what are these 3 types of neurons. Now we have already spoken about 3 types of neurons. So what are the 3 types of neurons? First one, we have told that it is the sensory neurons. Second one is the association neurons or the interneuron, and third one is the motor neuron. So let us know what are they and what are their functions. So sensory neuron these are making up all the senses in the body, even those which you are not consciously aware of. So all the sensory neurons, what are the senses you are receiving to your body, are carried by the sensory neurons. So the function of the sensory neurons is to detect and transmit the signals from the peripheral region to more the central location or to the central nervous system. So whatever the sensory organs or the senses you are not aware of also, the signals, they are being detected and transmitted by the sensory neurons from the peripheral region of the body to the central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord. Is it clear? So this is the sensory neuron, and these are also called the afferent neurons. Sensory neurons are also called the afferent neuron. Now you can see here. So these are the sensory neurons here which are receiving the signals or detecting the signals from the peripheral region of the body. These are carrying this through the afferent neuron, or these are the sensory neurons to the central nervous system. So these are being carried to the spinal cord. Okay, is it clear? Next comes the association neuron. So the association neuron is the other name of the interneuron. So what this interneuron is doing, the interneurons are the neurons that connect the brain and the two regions of the brain which are not directly linked with the motor of the sensory neuron. So these part, the in-between neuron, in between the afferent neuron and the efferent neuron, or the motor neuron or the sensory neurons, in between that there is one neuron that is called the association neuron, that is linking the sensory with the motor neuron. So these neurons are also called interneurons. So this neuron is called the interneuron, which is linking in between the afferent neuron and the efferent neuron, and its function is to connecting the both the two types of sensory and the motor neurons by this interneuron or association neuron. So its function is to associate or to connect both the motor and the sensory neurons. Now next comes the motor neuron. Third one is the motor neuron or the efferent neuron. So what is the function of efferent neuron? So the afferent neuron was bringing the stimulus or the signal from the peripheral region to the central nervous system. Now the motor neuron, what is it doing? The cell body of the motor neuron is lying in the spinal cord. So this cell body is located in the motor cortex, brainstem, or the spinal cord. Now the axon fiber projects this to the spinal cord or the outside of the spinal cord to the effector organ. So this axon which is projecting towards the outside of the spinal cord to the muscles and the glands, it is carrying the signal from the spinal cord because the cell body is in the spinal cord itself, but the axon is projecting outside of the spinal cord, from the spinal cord outside the spinal cord, to directly or indirectly to the muscles or the glands to give the effect. So these are reacting with the effector organs. So they are called efferent neuron as they are related to the effector organs. So these are the three main neurons which are the part of reflex arc, and with the help of these three neurons only this reflex action is happening. So it's a very complicated thing, but I tried to make it easier in my way, and I tried my best. So I think it is very clear to you all now. Just go through it once. Sensory neuron, association neuron, and motor neuron. With this diagram, this interneuron is linking between the sensory and the motor, and thus the effect is happening in the effector organ. So it is clear. So let us move on to the next part. Now this is what I told you in the previous diagram also. This is just a diagram of reflex arc. So the receptors of the skin, these are receiving the stimulus. It is carried with the help of afferent neuron or the sensory neurons to the spinal cord. There is one neuron called the interneuron in the spinal cord which is linking between the afferent and the efferent neuron or the motor neuron, and the motor neuron or the effector neuron is carrying the impulse to the effector muscle, that is the gland or the muscle where the effect of that stimulus is being seen. So if you are putting a hand on a hot object, you will try to remove your hand as a reflex action. So removing your hand is the effect, and receiving the hot or the heat is the receiving this, that is through the afferent neuron. It's being received to the spinal cord. So one is recepting, and the organ which is retracting itself from the heat or the sharp object is the effector organ or the effector gland. So same is happening here in this diagram. This is the sensory fiber or the afferent neuron. This is the receptors, a thermal pain in the skin. This is the interneuron or the association neuron. Is it clear? And next, with the motor fiber or the efferent neuron, this is being carried to the effector organ or the muscle. So this is the pathway of reflex arc. Please try to learn this with diagram, because your diagram is very important for your exam. Either they'll give you a label diagram, and a few labeling they'll not do, and they'll tell you to label those parts, or else they'll tell you to draw the pathway of a reflex arc with all these things which I have mentioned. Now this is the pathway of reflex arc which I have written in simple way. So what is happening here? First the stimulus is there. So stimulus is being received by the receptor organ and through the sensory neuron. So the sensory neuron, other term is it's also called the afferent neuron. So it's also called the afferent neuron. Then that is passed on to the association neuron, which is in the spinal cord, which is connecting in between the afferent and the efferent neuron. So this association neuron, as it is lying in between the two neurons, it is also called the interneuron. So we have learned it in the previous slide. Now next comes the motor neuron. So association neuron is carrying out the electrical stimulus to the motor neuron. Motor neuron is also called the efferent neuron. So it is also called the efferent neuron, which is taking the what are the impulses being taken to the muscle for the action. So the muscle for the action or the response is being the effector organ. So this is the receptor organ, and where the muscle action is happening, that is the effector organ. And this is the simple reflex arc which I have written here. Try to write it like this and try to learn it like this, so it will be very easy for you all. Now few examples of reflex action I have taken. Now first one is sneezing. It is an automatic spontaneous response to if any dust or any dust particles enters into your nose, you start sneezing. Blinking of eyes, if suddenly you flap your hands in front of your eyes, or a sudden blow of wind comes, so you start blinking your eyes. So it's an immediate reaction. Immediate withdrawal of hand, withdrawal of leg from any heat or sharp object, that is also a reflex action. And if you hit your knee with what I can say, with a hard object, you will try to retract your knee. That is a knee jerk reflex. So this is also a reflex action. Now here comes few important terms which are very important for this reflex action. And also, what are the important terms? First it comes to stimulus. So what is stimulus? Any condition in an environment which is causing a reaction in an organism is called the stimulus, and the plural is stimuli. So anything which is causing a reaction, suppose it is a hard object, it is a sharp object, it's a hot object, or you can say that anything which is causing any changes, any reaction in an organism, it is the stimulus. Now what is the response? So response is the reaction of the organism to that stimulus. Now if we are placing our hand on a hot object, we are retracting our hand or removing our hand. So removal of our hand is the response. So response to the stimulus, stimulus is the hot object. So any condition in the environment which causes a reaction of an organism is called the stimulus, and the reaction is called the response. Now what is external stimuli? The stimuli which can either from other living things or due to the non-living factors such as water, heat, change of temperature, dust and chemicals and so on in the environment are called external stimuli. And these are called external stimuli. That is, any external factors which are affecting the living being or causing reaction in an organism is called the external stimuli. And what is internal stimuli? Some stimuli which arise within the organisms in the body of the organism, these are internal stimuli. Like when we are feeling thirsty, when we are hungry, when we are having pain, stomach pain, head pain or pain wherever, any part in the body which is also causing reaction in the body of an organism. So these are called the internal stimuli. So any factor which is coming from outside is the external stimuli, and any factor which is coming within our body is the internal stimuli. That is thirst, hunger, pain and so on. These are all internal stimuli. Now what are receptors? Receptors are the organs which are the special cells or sense organs that receive stimulus from the environment. So these are the special cells in the sense organs that receive stimulus from the environment. So these are receptors. And what are effector organs? So these are the organs or the muscles that respond after receiving impulse from the brain or the spinal cord. Is it clear? So these are the organs or the muscles that respond after receiving impulse from the brain or the spinal cord. So effector organs, the effect or the response is happening in these organs or muscles or gland when the impulse is coming from the brain or the spinal cord. Now what is next? Let us see. Now just a quick idea about the peripheral nervous system. So what is peripheral nervous system? It consists of nerves arising from the brain and the spinal cord. There are two types of nerves, the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. These nerves link the central nervous system with the various parts of the body. At times they are large and visible to the human eye. Now this is in brief we are discussing here, as well as the next also, the autonomic nervous system also. Now the autonomic nervous system controls all the involuntary actions, which include the internal body functions such as heartbeats, the movement of the muscles of the stomach, intestines and so on. And the medulla oblongata controls the vital body functions. To accomplish all the involuntary tasks, the autonomic nervous system uses its two networks, sympathetic and parasympathetic system. So for your 8th standard, you just know that two network systems which are controlling the involuntary tasks are sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, and they are under the autonomic nervous system, which are controlling all the involuntary actions in our body, like the heartbeat, the movement of the muscles of the stomach, intestine and so on. Now let us see who this person is and what did he do. So in this reflex action, we should know this person. He is Ivan Pavlov. Ivan Pavlov, he is a Russian physiologist, and he is best known for the most thorough early work in the classical conditioning. So it's also a part of reflex action. So what did he do? He did a research on the digestion in dogs. So Pavlov developed a procedure that enabled him to study the digestive processes of animals over long periods of time. Now he redirected the animals' digestive fluids outside the body where they could be measured. So they started salivating. So what the experiment was? So Pavlov noticed that his dogs began to salivate in presence of a technician who normally fed them. So it was not the food, it was the technician who used to feed them, rather than simply salivating in presence of food. Now Pavlov called these dogs anticipatory salivation. It is a psychic secretion. Okay, he told that this is a psychic secretion, and putting this informal observations to an experimental test, Pavlov presented a stimulus, that is a sound of a metronome or a bell. So what did he do? Then he gave the dog a food, and after a few repetitions the dog started to salivate in response to the sound of the metronome or the sound of the bell only. So food was not at all required to salivate. So only the mere presence of the sound, mere presence of the sound of metronome helped them to salivate. So that is the psychic reaction. So Pavlov conducted this particular stimulus in the dog surroundings was present when the dog was given food. Then the stimulus could become associated with the food and the cause of the salivation on its own. So we will see this with the help of a diagram. Now let us see here. The food is unconditioned stimulus. In response to that, this dog is unconditioned responses. It is salivating. So next he is putting a bell or a metronome sound, no conditioned stimulus, so the dog is not at all salivating. So after that, continuously for a constant period of time, he started ringing the bell or a metronome, and he started giving the food. So this was in the experimental phase, and the dog was salivating, that is the unconditioned response. Then after that, after conditioning for a long period of time, what did he do? He started ringing the bell or the metronome, the conditioned stimulus, but he stopped giving the food. Then also the dog salivated. So this is the conditioned response, and this is the conditioned stimuli. So this is an important experiment of classical conditioning by Pavlov. So you should know this, and it is very important. Just remember this diagrams and you'll know the experiment, that is before conditioning. This is also before conditioning. This is during conditioning when the bell and the food both were given. And this is after conditioning when the bell was given but the food was not given. So let us now move on to the last part. Now last one is just sense organs. We all know what are sense organs, but then also we should know it in here also. So there is a close association between the central nervous system and the sense organs. Now the stimuli like heat, sound, light, which are detected by different receptors, they are received by the sense organ only. So receptors are what? They are special cells present in the sense organs only. So the sense organs are associated with central nervous system. The receptors are located in the sense organs only, which are receiving the stimulus from the environment, and these sense organs are responsible for the reception of the stimuli of the sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. Now each sense organ is directly connected to the brain, and you can say that eye, ear, nose, tongue and skin, these are having the nerves or the sensory nerves, sensory neurons, which are directly connected to the brain. So this is all for the complete nervous system, which I have taught you in 3 episodes. Please go through all the 3 parts. It will be easier for you to learn that in full. And today's episode is complete here itself. So I am putting the link in the I box above as well as in the description box below also. So please do go to the link and subscribe to my channel, so that whenever I'm posting updates, I'm posting updates twice or thrice a week. So you'll get the updates and you will learn more as per the ICSE curriculums in your biology lessons. And I'll be doing the revision also with each and every lesson before your final exam. So stay tuned, stay updated with all my lessons, and don't forget to like and share and write the comment if you are having any doubts, any queries. Thank you.